Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the 6th episode of the story, and a chance meeting leads Naruto Uzumaki to learn Genjutsu. Sure, he lacks talent, but once Naruto sets his mind to something, he will never give up until he completes it, and Naruto will not stop until he is a master of Genjutsu. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Now let's begin. Irika guided Team 7 to the barracks, where they took a break to rest, recover, and get ready for their workout. Sasuke was unable to clear the curse mark and instead chose to communicate using as much chakra as possible. Despite his anger, Sakura refused to let him go and left him alone. After sleeping together, Naruto allowed them to drift off and watch the other teams arrive. The Sand team was the most rapid team to enter, completing the second phase in just 97 minutes. Team 8's second-place finish surprised him, as they finished the race in third place. One of the final teams, Team 10, included Naruto, Shikamaru, and Chai, who talked about their experiences in the Forest of Death while Ino spent time hanging out with Sakura and Sasuke. Naruto had the opportunity to speak with Tenten and Rock Lee, who resembled her black-haired counterpart. He found it to be a fascinating experience. After the second round of the exam was completed, the remaining 9 teams hurried to a grand room that had 2 balconies on both sides of an arena and topped with soaring statues. Despite being exposed to her extra challenge, Anko made sure they were all congratulated and caused Team 10 and other teams to feel uneasy. Despite the Hokage's explanation for their Chunin exam being presented in a speech, Naruto chose to ignore it due to his focus on Kurenai's concern. The incident at her apartment had not crossed his mind, but Kurenai's stunning red eyes caught his attention and he was moved to tears. Naruto's only criticism was that Karen had not made it to the final scene. He was concerned about not being able to witness the last connection with his family that he knew of. After being approved by the Hokage, the brown-haired proctor announced his selection as the examiner for the Chunin exams, saying, "I am your instructor Genma Shiranui." He was dressed in the Hidden Leaf Village's Chunin outfit and had his forehead protector tied backwards, like a bandana. He had a sunbon in between his teeth and pockets with his hands folded. The fact that Hayate Gek, the first-choice proctor, was sent on an emergency mission to the Land of Waters did not surprise him, as he served as backup for the third phase of the exams. Instead of giving yourself a month to prepare for MMA, we'll be taking it easy by offering introductory bouts and knocking out some of the competition. We cannot afford to waste time with important clients who will be attending the tournament. The preliminary will feature one-on-one matches. If you do not want to take the individual exam, raise your hand and you can quit. Kabuto lifted his hand. I was poisoned by a snake bite. He displayed the snake bite on his forearm. I have to quit smoking because I can barely move and see double. Genma nodded and smiled, followed by Kabuto grimacing and holding his forearm. After Kabuto and 2 genin from the Hidden Cloud Village exited the arena-like room, Genma announced that a random draw would determine the 12 matches. The rules are straightforward: persist in fighting until you die or become unconscious. If it's necessary, I'll stop the game. An electronic display situated at the uppermost part of the room swung, running through names and then turning off. With the exception of Sasuke Uchiha and Yoroi Akad, nobody else enters the stands. As the others moved to the balconies, Sakura approached Sasuke and reached out to grab his hand. Sasuke. Kindly exercise restraint, okay? Don't let that bother you, I'll be alright. Sasuke's expression was characterized by a frowning face. I'm confident that I can win this match with a single blow from the girl. Sasuke smiled at her and said, just be careful. I appreciate your consideration, but I'll be alright. After returning it, Sakura took a moment to remove her hand from Sasuke and proceeded to stand beside Naruto and Kakashi. During Phase 2, what interesting events occurred? Kakashi inquired, watching his book. Naruto believed that Orochimaru's chakra was still present around the 3 shinobi assembled on the balcony-like stand on one side of the arena. Orochimaru. We fought him in the forest of death. It's conceivable that he is still present, lurking around. Kakashi ended his book. It is definitely interesting, Kurenai. Look at Naruto's character as he looks around. They remained in each other's eyes for a moment before she turned to face Kakashi. It certainly holds true. The exam was all about giant snakes, which left me wanting to see more, Shikamaru grumbled as he leaped against the railing. His team was in the vicinity of Team 7 and 8. I can't help but wonder what those were. The scroll was delivered on time, as Ino mentioned. She strode through her hair with her hands. We fight a snake the size of an enormous house, but we don't win. What kind of shame would that be, right? Shikamaru shook his head in frustration. If that were to occur, it would be a significant inconvenience. You managed to exit the forest safely, Asuma remarked, flicking his fingers for cigarettes and taking a slow drag. Like Kurenai and Kakashi, he was fixated on Sasuke. Nevertheless, you are not out of the woods yet. Genma exclaimed, let the game start. Sasuke utilized his Sharingan and twisted through hand seals, neglecting the burning of the curse mark as it dislodged his chakras. He exhibited the Great Fire Dragon's fire-like appearance, emitting a head-shaped explosion that was almost as large as the last Uchiha and his adversary. Yoroi, a tall young man in purple attire with black sunglasses and the leaf's protector for his forehead, raised his hands in front of him instead of trying to dodging. Their appearance changed to a bluish hue. The maneuver caused him to be consumed, but as the smoke dissipated and the fire subsided, Yoroi remained standing. He had burnt clothes and charred most of his skin, but his hands were blue with a burst of blue light, the steam dissipated all over his body, and his flesh was glistening like he had been hit with water-style jutsu. How did you manage to survive? Sasuke growled. He crumpled to one knee and began to grip his shoulder. Asuma asked how much he had been training the child, Kakashi, and responded by thanking him for his hard work in training him. To execute a technique like that is simply remarkable. It's not too shabby. Kakashi inquired, Sasuke, did you learn the technique by yourself? He was more interested in the markings that had appeared on Sasuji's face and arm. Yoroi asked, why should I tell you, in a mocking tone. With a grimace, Sasuke proceeded to move forward quickly. 3 shuriken were released as he flicked his fingers. Yoroi attempted to stop them with a kunai, but Sasuke was able to make evasive moves towards his groin by moving his foot upwards. Yoroi's knees were in unbearable pain as he fell. Putting an end to Yoroi's suffering, Sasuke executed a flat-footed stomp into his stomach. He had a creepy expression on his face. In case you were still alive after my attack, your skin would be extra sensitive due to exposure to all that fire. If I were to eject you, what consequences would ensue? He waded into agony as the marks on his skin disappeared, holding onto one knee and clutching his shoulder again. Sasuke Uchiha was declared the winner by Genma, who gave him a split second. Sasuke's Sharingan was switched off just before he collapsed. Sasuke was taken away by Kakashi after he came face to face with him and waved off the medical staff. Naruto observed the disappearance of Orochimaru's chakra around the same time. He didn't raise the issue as he believed the other Chunin had knowledge of Orochimaru's presence. Sakura observed Sasuke's exit, expressing concern through her aggressive lip-biting. Let me know if you have any positive feelings for Sasuke. The reappearance of Sasuke's curse mark left Sakura feeling agitated and confused. Naruto expressed satisfaction that Sasuke would receive the curse mark. The root of his chakra system being rooted by an uncontrollable element would pose a challenge, at least for now. The following match between Shino Aburame and Zaku Abumi, a shinobi with black hair and the same forehead protector as Orochimaru, unfolded in Naruto's view. Naruto inquired, Kurenai-sensei, with a nervous expression. Naruto's heart was filled with wonder as Kurenai calmly asked, what the hell is that? As the shinobi began to launch wind-driven blasts at Shino, Naruto asked what symbol was on Zakugai's forehead protector. "The village hidden in the sound is our new village," Kurenai replied with a smile on her face. "I just wanted to know why you asked," Naruto said, before returning to the match and giving Kurenai a smile. Despite being trapped by Shino with his Kakache, Zaku's right arm burst into flames just as he was about to blow him out. Despite having the rest of his Kakache flowing out of Zaku's chakra, Shino was able to win very quickly. Genma declared, "Shino Aburame has won." As Zaku was being taken away by medical personnel, Shino nodded and walked back to his team. Naruto observed Kurenai's smile, which must have been a sign of his pride. Kakashi returned and Sakura asked, "Kakashi-sensei, how's it going, Sasuke?" After watching as Kankura, the hidden sand boy with a black bodysuit, fell to Misugi Tsurugi on the arena floor, Naruto turned to his official teacher and handed him back to school. Sasuke is expected to perform well. He experienced some chakra weariness and mental pressure, but he'll be fine after some rest in bed. Sakura's smile was unshakable. She was aware that Sasuke had not slept well the previous night, and was happy that he would be receiving proper medical attention for his condition. After watching Kankura use his puppet to sever ends of Misugi's bones, Kiba said, "These matches were pretty brutal." Genma declared, "Kankura." 2 additional names were shown on the electronic screen, which then flicked. "It seems like I'm moving," Sakura remarked. She smiled, as if she knew her match was about to end. In comparison to what occurred in the Forest of Death, this is a relatively easy task. Not in any way. "Sakura, you must see that after I beat you and your giant forehead," Sakura said with a grunting voice. Ino then proceeded to smile. Naruto observed Sakura and Ino's fight commencement after they made it to the arena. Ino fought with all his might, just as Sakura did. The 2 kunoichi were much more brutal in the sparring, unlike the other fights that were mostly one-sided and full of injuries. Sakura resorted to all possible means of combat, including clones, ninja tools, and substitutions, to overcome Ino. Not only did Ino hold her own, but she also managed to snag Sakura with her mind-body transfer technique. Ino appeared to be on the verge of winning, but Sakura compelled Ino to abandon the technique due to sheer determination. Following some more fluid squabbles, but ultimately unforced stops, Ino and Sakura were forced to suffer a double blow. Genma made a light-hearted comment about the idea of drawing. Tenten inquired from her spot, questioning whether Kunoichi's rookie status was on par with that of the other Hidden Leaf teams. "A little bit of understated, don't ask me how I feel about it. Their performance was impressive, especially considering their only 3 months of experience." The voice was from a man next to Tenten and her team, who both had black bowl-cut hair and wore chnin flak vests over green jumpers. Tenten was skeptical when he inquired, "Do you believe Gai-sensei really meant?" Asuma backed down and said, "I acknowledge, actually, following the return of Ino to the stand. Sakura and Ino both attained good results." Naruto was not in accord with the idea. During her fight with Inoda in the Forest of Death, Sakura was unfamiliar with a dangerous element that she didn't possess. He didn't look directly at Sakura, who was positioned by Kakashi against the wall. Naruto was aware that Sakura could have won the battle against Orochimaru if she had fought like her. Despite her lack of talent, Naruto was left questioning whether she had what it took, as he wasn't entirely sure. The electronic screen flickered again. Tenten exclaimed, "It's time for me," in a beaming tone. Her opponent, the blonde hidden sand kunoichi, used her fan to glide down to the arena. "Tenten, give it your all." Guy responded with enthusiasm. Naruto smiled and said, "Good luck, that's good." Guy and Naruto were given a nod by Tenten, who then leapt to her feet. Tenten and Sex are 2 competing titles. Temari. Genma urged for the commencement of the game. Naruto's expression was grimacing as he watched the match unfold. The wind control abilities of Temari proved to be the savior in Tenten's attacks. Temari resisted Tenten's attacks, regardless of her weapons or their effectiveness. After Tenten's last attack, the rising twin dragons, failed to subdue her, Temari was cut open by a powerful wind gust from her fan. Temari, who had Tenten's weapons on the battlefield, drew her adversary towards her fan and then placed her on top of it, unbalanced enough to knock her out. Genma proclaimed, "Temari, you're the winner." Tenten was thrown off by Temari's fan while she made a grimace. "I'm afraid this kunoichi is not the quality I have, so it will be too effortless," she stated. She smirked at Lee when she saw him catch her. "I'm not sure why you caught her, but it's not my concern here." After dedicating all his time to fighting, Tenten was embraced by him on his knees. "Is that how you treat someone who has given her everything?" Temari swore off. He said, "Just take that loser out of my vision." Lee reacted with aggression, but Genma intervened before an uncontrolled brawl could commence. "Lee, avoid going to the stands unless you want to be eliminated." Lee nodded in agreement with his sensei's former teammate. "It's clear that it is. My mistake was assuming that all shinobi had honor for the fallen." Naruto observed Lee placing Tenten on the ground to assist medics before returning to the stands. While Niji, Tenten's fellow teammate, was frowning, Naruto briefly detected him glaring darkly at Cloud Genin on the other side of the arena. Temari was brought back to the arena by him to be placed with her teammates. Naruto scowled, gripping the railing with his hand. Tenten, who was a kind-hearted girl, had bad luck when she battled her opposite man. Naruto was genuinely angered by Temari's behavior. His disgust was evident from the extent of her smugness and her willingness to further discredit her adversary. Even after the war was concluded. After Tenten's weapons were removed from the arena, Genma asked if Shikamaru, Nara and Karui would come down. Tch. Shikamaru expressed his dissatisfaction with the drag, stating that it was, "How frustrating. I am currently facing a girl who I want to confront." Naruto smiled and encouraged Shikamaru to "do your best," stating that it was the right decision. He put his hands in pockets and walked down the stairs, making an effort to make it to the arena as quickly as possible. Cloud Genin, the redhead known as Karui, walked to the arena in anger, but could not contain her pain. Shikamaru chuckled, "What the hell is up with you? You're angry about fighting a girl? I say, let's end this." Genma retreated as Karui and Shikamaru confronted each other. Karui immediately unsheathed her katana and took a downward swing at Shikamaru's neck, shouting, "Start." As the attack progressed, Shikamaru slaled and almost collided with the forceful swing before leaping backwards. It came about pretty quickly. Karui retorted, "You are a chauvinistic being, and lightning will never get you anywhere," by holding her katana. "Your disgust for the notion that women are inferior due to the lack of dicks makes me sickened." Shikamaru regained his composure and shook his head. He exchanged blows with Karui multiple times, almost causing severe injuries in critical areas. Despite the overwhelming force of Karui's strikes, she still had enough control to guide her katana where it was needed. The knowledge that Karui had fought was becoming more and more overwhelming for Shikamaru, who was getting increasingly frustrated with the frequency of her absences. Karui stooped with excitement, twisting her blade towards the sky in a manner that would shatter Shikamaru's head from his shoulders. Before she could behead him, Karui was asked about his actions. "Is this paralysis?" Shikamaru inquired, scooting to his death while holding his hands in the rat seal. He was linked to Karui by a shadow. Flexed your blade's shadow and utilized it to command your body. He shifted into a standing posture, which Karui took after. "I'm not under any suspicion that I have a problem with women. If I had played a second slower, I would have lost 10 times as much as this match. You must be stronger or faster than me." He exhibited a grimaceful expression on his face. "I was taught how to treat women by my mother, who made sure to communicate her message clearly. Naruto and Chai recollected, with tears in their eyes, how Yoshino would react if someone disagreed with her. It's why I find it difficult to confront girls or women. He raised his hand up to his neck and Karui imitated him, with her katana now positioned at her neck's back. Please refrain from leaving, as I cannot guarantee your safety. Shikamaru lowered his hand to her neck as she observed the unwavering determination in her eyes. Karui snapped, I'm done for, finished. Genma declared, Shikamaru Nara is victorious. Shikamaru disregarded the shadow possession method and returned to his team, while Karui hurriedly left to meet her teammates. Shikamaru did a great job, Naruto said to Shikamaru upon his return. Shikamaru was a person who took advantage of any opportunities to win, even with Karui's exceptional talent and similar chakra. Sucking her out of the bag like that. Shikamaru's expression was one of pure happiness. As I mentioned, it was a difficult task to position her in that way, she said. I'm confident that I have the ability to persuade Shikamaru to do whatever, Ino retorted. Just prior to Shikamaru's match, she woke up. One is afraid of his mother. Shikamaru asked, what's the point of my doing this? He pressed his face into his palms. Ino's laughter was not enough as the temperature in the room dropped by a few degrees. Kurenai asked, what are you up to? Kiba, I'm not prepared to see that girl, he replied. I'm not sure how she got away with it, but her presence on this test is too hazardous for you to confront. With a smile on his face, Kiba turned to look at the blonde cloud girl. What about her unappealing appearance? After Sakura's match, Kakashi returned to his book and asked if it was possible to give him a chance, responding that the answer was yes. We'll see how he can overcome formidable challenges. Kakashi was met with a frown from Kurenai, who gave him icy glances. I am well versed in handling my genitals, Kakashi. Hello, can you take a look at me? Kurenai resisted the temptation to hold her hand over her forehead. While she was conversing with Kakashi, Kiba and Akamaru had jumped from the balcony. This is what? It's possible that this will be a beneficial learning curve for him. If you have to confront Kiba, utilize your best skills and tactics. Kurenai-sensei, I have my back on you. Akamaru had jumped out of Kiba's coat and stood beside him. He was met with a smirk from the girl. Kids, I really don't like dogs. Kiba showed a frown. You look like a cat, and I have resentment towards cats. Genma exclaimed as she let go of his hands to mark the start of the Kiba Inuzuka and Yujito ni competition. As Kiba was getting ready to attack, Hinata asked, Kurenai-sensei? Despite his boredom, Yujito maintained a half-sleeping stare at Kiba as she stood there. Is Kiba going to emerge victorious? Kurenai scoffed at his colleague. I'm not confident that Kiba can come out on top in this game, but I don't think he has the potential to make it happen. Kiba scowled and utilized his beast mimicry maneuver to sharpen and extend his fingernails and teeth, blurring the distinction between human and canine. With his back turned to all fours, he dashed towards Yujito and extended his right elbow. After using the technique, Naruto noticed that Kiba's chakra shifted towards Akamaru and felt a rise in his chakra when he charged. Yujito evaded the attack without hesitation and kept his balance while on all fours, trying to avoid Kiba's follow-up attempt. Naruto was taken aback by her swiftness and the ease with which she dodged, although it seemed like she was having difficulty adapting to her pace, as if she had been used to taking longer steps or waiting longer to move. Kiba came back to Akamaru and provided him with a red pill. It looks like we'll have to go all the way, man. With his face reddened by the horn, Akamaru let out a loud cry and then proceeded to jump onto Kiba's back. Human-beast clone, Akamaru turned into a carbon copy of Kiba and circled Yujito while the latter attacked. He charged in at Yujito, charging forward and hitting her legs with the intention to catch her off guard. Yujito sprang into action after Kiba's leg sweep, but her gaze brightened as Akamaru tackled her with a spinning kick. Yujito was thrown up in the air, but she managed to balance on her feet and steer clear of another spinning tackle by Kiba. Kiba's safe run made way for Kakashi to look up and ask, "Hit and run." Another tactic that is not detrimental to the game. With a beaming expression, Kurenai looked proud. Kiba could potentially have a shot. Yujito smirked at Kurenai after hearing his words. It's time to move on. The feline swiftly moved her body, slamming her fist into Kiba's stomach and making him cough out blood. Once more, Naruto observed the additional second that Yujito spent en route to close the gap. He was cognizant of the fact that the other Chunin were also aware of this fact. Hinata trembled as Kurenai's smile faded and Shino Samurai flicked his Kakashi with a slight buzz, his fists tightened and shut. "Akamaru, please!" Kiba cried out, holding onto Yujito's arm. After jumping, Akamaru spun and crashed into Yujito's back. Yujito came back a short distance, but his condition was not better, and Kiba was sent shivering on the ground after being hit by Akamaru. "Are we done yet?" Kiba shook his head in frustration as Akamaru stood up for his friend. There was no action taken. She had a barely whisking voice. Kiba growled and ran after Yujito, while Akamaru aimed for the front and leapt in the air. Kiba and Akamaru employed the tunneling Fong technique, but their rotations were faster and they aimed at one point, Yujitoshi. "As a substitute, let me put you in my place." Naruto's left hand was wrapped in blue fire, resembling the shape of a cat's paw. The nine-tailed fox chimed in, saying, "How funny," from inside its enclosure. Matatabi is attempting to express himself through his words. Naruto inquired about the nine tails, his mind tense as he heard their voice again. The chakra of the two-tailed monster cat is being used by the girl to attack her opponent. The act is an unjustified display of aggression, likely intended to intimidate other Jinchuriki. I am clueless about this. Naruto observed Yujito's backward motion like a cat, but Kiba and Akamaru adjusted their steps slightly to avoid colliding with each other. Upon landing, Kiba and Akamaru made an abrupt turn and ran even faster. Yujito confronted Akamaru's inquest and attacked him by cutting off his paw and burning his skin. Kiba growled as Akamaru's transformation took a turn for the worse and he was knocked out on the floor. He halted his charge immediately by placing his hands on the ground with chakra, changing his posture to achieve maximum velocity and strike Yujito with all his strength. He roared as he applied chakra to his legs and right hand, then quickly raced towards his opponent and slashed downwards, barely scratching Yujito's face. Despite her step being 1 centimeter too short, Yujito hit her tongue and successfully knocked down Kiba. Genma proclaimed, "Yujito ni," before Kiba could make contact. Kiba slammed to ground, but then stood up and stumbled towards Akamaru, who was then picked up by him and returned to the stands. Yujito glanced briefly at Naruto and the red-haired hidden Sangenin while letting her cat's paw fade away, then returned to her side of the arena. Naruto was surprised by how well Kiba handled a stronger opponent and unexpectedly caught her off guard. "Don't think you'll be better than your loner colleagues. The Two Tails container is deadly, even though I am significantly stronger. Unless you use my chakra to tip the scales, so to speak." Naruto listened to the Nine Tails' words and observed Hinata giving her medicinal cream to Akamaru and Kiba, who were burned in their torsos. Akamaru had a more severe injury than Kiba. Kiba's hair was styled by Kurenai with ruffling. "Kiba, you performed admirably." "I am in agreement," Shino declared. "You employed a strong approach, but your defeat was unfavorable considering the strength of the opposition you encountered." Kiba's nod erupted unsteadily, and he took the opportunity to rest. Naruto felt a hint of envy at their interaction, as it demonstrated the true strength of the team. Naruto had a brief contemplation about his team. They had been encouraging to him lately. The Nine Tails accepted him as their Jinchuriki, and their interactions after surviving the ordeal in the Forest of Death were almost seamless. It's a natural state. The upcoming match will feature Niji Hyuga against Sang. Genma broke Naruto's silence by saying Hiromi, causing him to leave his dream state. Niji's eyes flickered with what could be considered a surge of excitement, and then he gracefully landed on the balcony after jumping. Hiromi, the cloud girl with dark hair and a low ponytail, was seen walking slowly down the stairs. Despite Niji's lack of return, Hiromi gave him a warm smile that caught his eye. Genma asked if she was prepared. They both gave a nod. "Start off." Niji cried out. "Shut up," she said. "I will give you a chance to forfeit and return to the village you call home with all your pride and life intact, as an excuse. Your fate will be mine to suffer if you don't accept it." With a smile on her face, Hiromi continued walking forward, her hips swinging as she did. "Don't behave like that person. Your looks are stunning, but it's not appropriate for a good-looking man to make such derogatory remarks." With her singing voice echoing, she danced with grace and precision, evoking an alluring aroma. She placed a finger on Niji's wrist and moved it up his right arm, touching his chin. With a leisurely effort, Niji raised his left palm to chase Hiromi, but she spun around and giggled as she touched his palm with hers, interceding their fingers briefly, sending shock waves through Niji's spine. Hiromi rubbed Niji's body against his vagina in positions that made him more calm, while each of the boys began to slow down. She evaded Niji's final shot and reversed back. Hiromi's lips tugged and he gave a suggestive frown. "I've never met anyone more attractive than you, and I'm envious of your beauty. The combination of these features makes it all the more sexy." She swung her head around him. She viewed him in the same manner as a predator would when confronting its prey. During the game, Kiba was seen covering his nose and hoarsely coughing from the stands. While recuperating from his loss, he mentioned that the girl was producing an abundance of pheromones in between coughs. Kakashi had taken a step back and placed his book on top of his nose. "She must be trying to use a different tactic," Kurenai said. "By controlling a man's hormones, you can achieve optimal results." Hiromi's words of comfort to Niji made him feel like he was fighting an internal battle. It appeared to him that he was about to fall asleep, and his only option was to inflict harm on the girl before it happened. He was about to concede, but then he remembered his father who had passed away. Niji's Byakugan motion caused him to lose all his cool, leaving him with a cold laugh. While Hiromi was about to touch Niji's heart with another feather-light touch, he unexpectedly moved towards her and placed his hand on her wrist, which sealed the chakra points located there. Hiromi muttered, "Seduction?" "Come on, Niji," he murmured. "Let's take a break from everything and talk about your day." Niji's touch caused her to lose sensation when she attempted to move her hand, which ultimately went numb. "You're still attempting to steal the Byakugan, but your efforts have been fruitless. The approach you have taken to obtain it is worth mentioning. Disturbingly disturbing and discourteous. My assumption is that all of you who are ninjas from the cloud came to see the Byakugan harvest. If you missed my return, you would focus on my cousin's failure." Niji's laughter resembled an inside joke, as he laughed aloud. "If you were to succeed in obtaining the Byakugan, it would have the ability to see everything that the light touches." While Hiromi was shaking her hand, Niji's hand flashed, causing her to lose all coordination and her entire arm to become slender. She said, "I see a girl with an awful lot of talent trying desperately to use her gifts to serve this pathetic, cowardly leader and help him in his dishonorable attempt to defy his fate." Niji's face transformed into a mean-spirited grin as Hiromi held her lifeless body. "Moreover, your sorrowful rakage seems to have lost his lesson." Hiromi smirked with an angry expression. "I'm sure you had other plans, but you chose to wear that headband and serve that dreadful deed of a ninja village. I am not inclined to sympathize with those who are being foolish." She yelled out, "Shut up." Hiromi murmured, her voice losing the imprint of an overbearing melody. "I was told that you were a good match for me." The Cloud Genin handed you his scroll, and Niji acknowledged, "You were the one who killed him," with a stoic look on his face. Are you perplexed by that statement? Let me rectify my error, if it isn't true. A tree branch was transformed into a scroll by him through the use of Genjutsu. The Genjutsu was discredited and the scroll was taken from him by me. The outcome of his case is insignificant. For someone like me, his life is of no use. And so is yours too. You're going to die for your actions. Hiromi sprinted forward at full speed and unleashed her only weapon with force. Niji effortlessly moved around the chakra points in her arm and sealed them. Hit, Hiromi knelt down while Niji pulled her right leg. She leaped against her good leg and used it to jump backwards. Niji urged all Cloud Genin to follow the example and serve as Raikage, a defiant role for those who do not belong to that class. He proceeded to jab at Hiromi's stomach 3 times, resulting in severe internal injuries. Blood was coughed out by Hiromi in a violent manner. I cannot even bear to see his ninja at this point, so it is appropriate for him to be sacrificed. With his fingers raised, he charged them with chakra and pointed them towards Hiromi's temple as blood streamed out of her mouth. A girl who was only a few years older than Niji stood beside him, holding unconscious Hiromi in her hands, as Hiroap Tantum. With her curvaceous blonde hair and white flak vest on top of a gray shirt that barely covered her voluptuous chest, she was fiercely confident. She was wearing a black skirt and red arm guards, along with mesh armor underneath her shirt. As Hiromi's Chunin representative, I give up on her behalf, the girl calmly stated. Genma nodded in agreement. I can see that as true. Niji Hyga was declared the winner by forfeit, as he looked at the girl and laughed. I know you stopped me from killing that girl, but it is her fate to be a sacrifice for your Raikage's arrogance. The girl maintained a passive stare at Niji. The way you're doing it isn't cool. The Cloud Ninjas you battled, Hiromi, were all innocent victims. Unfortunately, Niji agreed, stating that maybe they were. My father, too, was innocent and died due to Raikage's arrogance. Can you believe it? It's not equitable, right? Losing the Leaf Village of your Raikage is fate for him to do so proportionally. The girl replied, what do you think he took away from me? With his hand twitching, Niji charged towards the girl's heart but was stopped suddenly. Niji's wrist was being tightly held by Might Guy in front of the hidden Cloud Chunin. I sympathize with you, Niji, but refrain from expressing anger towards things that are beyond your control to make them more apparent. Gabriel-sensei has been unable to control everything since his birth. Fate's plan for me is the only way out, and everything that happens will be fated in my wake. He raised his hand and let Guy's wrist restraint. After deactivating his Byakugan, Niji departed from his sensei and headed towards the stands. From his perspective, it wasn't over yet. The Raikage was unable to accept that his fate was to never lay his hands on the Byakugan. Regrettably, he didn't grasp the truth of his situation, even though his absurd demands coerced his family into abandoning him. He paused to observe Hiromi as the medical team carried her on a stretcher. It was unsatisfactory and futile to express his anger towards the innocent by using his treatment of Hinata as an example. He would destroy the Raikage's plans for the Hidden Leaf Village, rather than follow through. Even if it took his life, he would make sure to acknowledge the mistake of his actions. That is the rightful claim he deserves. His fate is that. Niji returned to Lee's place of standing. He knew that after his brutal and quick defeat of Hiromi, everyone was staring at him, but he didn't care. He had no regrets about his actions and would do it again if given the chance. His cousin impeded his journey to rejoin his teammate and watch the remaining games. Niji asked, "Are you alright?" with her voice making a sharp turn. Her expression was filled with worry, and when Niji saw it, he smiled back, remembering Hinata's death and the loss of his father. He forcefully pushed her away from his grasp. Despite hitting the wall shoulder first, Hinata supported herself by placing her hand on it. She was incapable of looking at him, clearly resigning herself to the fact that she couldn't stand up for him when she wanted to. Looking into the mirror, Niji looked internally bewildered as he saw that Hinata had essentially become stoic. You are not entitled to care for my well-being, and you have no right to do so. Niji's derogatory remarks were heard by Hinata many times, resulting in his silence. Despite her best efforts to be nice to him, Niji never showed any signs of arrogance or kindness towards him. She was cognizant of the fact that he was correct in saying she was weak and unproductive. Niji didn't have to be concerned about her excuses, as he could read her without hesitation. Kiba suggested hiking to Hinata, saying, "Just go for a hike. Don't be afraid of him, Hinata," he said, placing his hand on her shoulder. He muttered, but his teeth were firmly grasped. He then turned towards Niji and gave him a sharp look. "What's the matter with you, buddy? What has Hinata done for you?" Niji retorted and smiled at him while answering. He was unable to grasp the concept. It seems that the old saying is no longer accurate, as birds of a feather gather in flocks. It appears that only those who have overcome a similar opponent like Hinata can offer support. He continued as he went, having had enough of Hinata for the day. "Don't you think it would be wise for you to continue berating Hinata, Niji Hyuga?" Shino asked. "Why do you think she is stronger than you?" "It's not necessarily about proficiency, but rather in terms of personality. To begin with, I recommend adopting her virtues of humility, patience, and empathy." Rather than being bothered by Shino's harsh assessment, Niji chose to ignore it. The revelation of Shino's supposed flaws was not his first mistake, and he would not be the last one to do so. Shield your pitiful teammate and let their emotions run free. She is destined to be a loser. With her arms crossed, Kurenai gazed at Niji. "I advise you to depart, right?" Prior to a significant match, Hinata's self-esteem would be severely damaged by her family member. With a shrug, Niji exited the arena. Unless they can find Hinata, who is now weakling, they may not be able to recognize her until she loses consciousness. Naruto spent the last few minutes rejoicing over everything that had occurred to Niji and finding it difficult to compare himself to his own situation. He could have become a victim of his own volition by hurting innocent people and mistreating the wrongfully chosen ones, as he was incapable of reaching his intended victims. Naruto's pride was fueled by his decision to not let fate or any other concept shape his life. If he did, his situation would probably be much worse than Niji's. Genma, holding a senbanak, declared Omoi and Kintsuchi were ready to fight. It appeared to be a respectable job for him as he watched numerous ninjas engage in combat using different techniques. After sucking on the lollipop, Omoi sighed and pulled it out. "If I emerge victorious, I'll probably have to contend with that Niji man." Karui snapped at the idea of going against him. "It goes like this. One more person besides Yujito has to shine when all the delegates come back to this place next month." And so I went further. He squealed and put the lollipop back into his mouth. "If I were to lose, what would happen? The reputation of the Cloud Village would be negatively impacted, and the Hidden Leaf Village could potentially remove us from the map. Samui, are you okay with giving it a shot?" "No problem, I'm not complaining." He tucked his hands into his pockets and walked up the stairs without smiling. Genma's expression changed to a scowl as Omoi finally arrived at the arena. "Is it time to join us again, Kunoichi?" Kin was wearing a green vest with dark hair, snake-patterned pants, and scarf. He nodded off in surprise. "You're not going to be a coward, at least you won't be wimping out." Genma said, "Let the battle begin." The rebels were on high alert. Kin employed their skill to retrieve a pair of senbon and launched them at Omoi. Having taken his katana, Omoi charged the senbon off and withdrew its blade, but the metal struck him hard enough to give him an unsettling sound that pierced his ears. Kin pulled out additional senbons as Omoi dropped his katana and put his hands on his ears to prevent the sound, which made her grin. "My senbon was embellished with bells," Kin said proudly. She hurled some Senbon at Omoi. Cloud Genin then promptly threw his arms in front of him to protect his face while still holding his hands to his ears, and with good reason, his arms were pierced instead of the man's. He saw several duplicates of his adversary when he pulled his arms back. Kin's expression grew more boisterous as she continued to throw Senbon at Omoi, who was left vulnerable and unable to resist her attacker. In addition to the eerie noise made by those bells, I also practiced a Genjutsu style that is sure to make people laugh. She swore insolently to herself. Omoi struck his tongue. Despite the bells making an annoying noise, the Senbon kept on poking and piercing him, eventually turning him into a pincushion. He was about to burst out with his ears, but he managed to grab his katana and roll away from a trio of Senbon that were approaching him. He ran towards Kin and the latter took advantage of the situation, launching himself into another round of Senbon. With a tree log in hand, he flashed behind Kin and held the edge of his katana to her neck. Kin was told by Omoi that it was a simple technique, where she pulled her arm behind her back and hooked it with his, arching it backwards for leverage. I can't help but wonder at what extent it could have been so destructive. The vibrations could have caused me to explode. Karui's distress could be exacerbated, and she would aim to take your life to seek retribution. Your village was likely to be destroyed by the hidden cloud village in order to gain more ground. As Omoi was explaining his theory to Kin, he began to stroke her with his knife, drawing blood. Genma replied with a final phrase, "That's all there is to it," while the other voice continued. He seemed to be irritated by Omoi's victory over Kin. He must have enjoyed them if he had chewed on Senbon. "You come out on top, right?" Omoi let go of his grip on Kin, who then slammed her throat to prevent the bleeding. Naruto observed the fight with interest as Kin was transported to the hospital by the medical team. Kin had a desire to teach himself how to activate her Genjutsu, which was the method he did. His potential would be greatly enhanced by the use of weapons in Genjutsu, which would allow him to move at a much faster pace and with greater accuracy. This was a matter of concern in the future, as the combination of Genjutsu and Taijutsu failed to achieve the desired results. The electronic screen flickered again. Asuma looked at the display and said, "Hey, Chai." Gaara had uncrossed her arms and entered the arena in a swirl of sand, thinking she might be ready. "So you're up for it," she said. His menacing gaze amounted to an inexplicable pain, and Naruto was relieved he wasn't fighting him. "Asuma-sensei is unknown to me," Chai said. "That particular man appears to be a professional." Asuma's expression was a murmur. "I'll disclose to you the truth, just as quickly as I can. If you engage in combat, I'll provide an all-you-can-eat buffet after the preliminary rounds." Shikamaru screamed. "That's not the approach I recommend, Asuma-sensei. You're only asking for trouble if you were to offer Chai food as a reward." Chai's smiling face was filled with encouragement as she told Ino to give it your best shot. "If Lazy Bones here can win, why not give it a shot and see what happens?" Chai's expression faded as he looked towards Ino and his team, then proceeded to walk up the stairs. Naruto's attention was directed towards Chai, which he called out. "Do what you can with the most effective approach. This individual is a part of the malevolent group. His personality is unique, so if you can't meet him, quit." Chai nodded and carried on with her walk. Upon arriving at the arena, he faced off against Gaara. Genma asked if she was prepared. Both individuals gave a nod to each other. By piercing his body with two hand seals, Chai expelled the commanding phrase, "Begin." He threw his arms, legs, and head into the air as if to create a giant ball. Chakra was unleashed, and Chai hurried towards Gaara. He was impeded by a wall of sand just before he could make contact with him. Chai persisted in his efforts to attack Gaara, but were unable to overcome the obstacles. Gaara expressed her disappointment by uttering, "Weakling." Chai cried out in pain as the sand wall began to shift. Chai's stomach was pierced by a sandstone, necessitating the cessation of his unique jutsu. Chai's attempt to stop the bleeding by placing a hand on the wound resulted in blood streaming from the area. As awful as this is, blood from a pig won't satisfy my mother. The sand surrounding him began to shake violently. Chai crawled in reverse. Naruto couldn't justify his decision to quit, as he was unable to defend Gaara and would likely die from the injury. Genma nodded in agreement. Gaara has won, but not by any means. Gaara retorted. I'm a bit afraid to be honest with you about it. Keep away from me. The sand surrounding Gaara caused Chai to tremble and limp to the hospital, prompting her to take action. I will vouch for the rightness of my life. The opposition is more formidable, leading to increased chances of causing harm. My spirits will not fade away until all of you remember me. Gaara's return to the stands was accompanied by that condemning statement. Naruto found it challenging to maintain his composure. Gaara's killing intent was comparable to Orochimaru, and his defense was fast-paced and incredibly strong, if it could stop such a potent attack. He had no remorse for his act of killing. The child's shortcomings as a person are not entirely his responsibility, the Nine-Tails added. Naruto inquired, but how would you ascertain? The Nine-Tails screamed. The ability of Shikaku, the one-tailed tanuki, to sabotage its containers is for its own sake. Even so, it is by far the most vulnerable of the tailed beasts, and your success is certain if you employ my strength. The possibility of getting away from Gaara's defense does not pose a significant problem for me. Or could be. Despite this, Shikaku's container is more powerful than your current power. If you want to outdo him, it's your call. Naruto's head was shook by him. The nine-tailed fox was believed by him to be the embodiment of evil. However, it was only bitter and vexing towards other tailed beasts. Nevertheless, he had only been educated through the Nine-Tails, and this connection had some benefits. The electronic screen flickered again. Yes. Lee cried out loud. I have the opportunity. He exclaimed, letting go of the railing and plummeting onto the ground. The individual he challenged was wearing, who had his face bandaged except for his left eye, a monochrome camouflage scarf and pants, an all-in-one violet sweater with long sleeves, and sleeveless straw raincoat. Rock Lee and Dosu Kinyuta will face off. Genma declared. Lee had one hand behind his back and the other in front of him, with his forearm positioned vertically. Lee shifted and made a jab at Dosu's face, but the latter successfully blocked him with his right arm. Lee reacted by grumbling in pain and attempted to stop the violent ringing in his head by placing his hands on his ears, falling to his knees. Lee's nausea erupted as he coughed up a small amount. What's your job? He inquired in the absence of hacking coughs. Dosu lowered his right arm, uncovering a silver gauntlet with holes in its side. I possess my melody arm to manipulate sound waves. If you're close, I can disable you. Lee stooped up and resumed the strong fist style. Assuming all is said and done, then. I have learned the means to overcome you. The struggle persisted. Despite being well positioned behind the melody arm, Lee attacked Dosu with precise and forceful punches and kicks. Although Dosu had a powerful weapon and was capable of inflicting significant harm, he failed to approach Lee, who managed to avoid one of Dosu's strikes and execute evasive leg sweeps. Lee kicked Dosu's back as he emerged from under him. Lee hit Dosu's solar plexus with an axe kick, effectively sending the sound genin crashing to the ground. Genma smiled and declared, Rock Lee has emerged as the champion. Naruto was once again surprised by the outcome of the match. Lee's proficiency in taijutsu, coupled with his speed, made him the least likely opponent to fight against. He had the ability to turn enemy attacks into their advantage. He mentally added Lee to his list of dangerous opponents, joining Neji, Gaara, and Yujito. While looking at the display, Naruto's expression was a smile upon seeing his name, but it faded when he saw who lacked confidence in him. He glanced at Kurenai and witnessed her face covered by a mask, then observed the voice of his official sensei. "You've gotten plenty of training, Naruto?" Kakashi asked, staring back at his book. As Kiba pumped up his teammate's spirits, she had become unresponsive after reading her name on the display. "Hinata, this is what you're after. You're facing off against the dead Laster. It's not a difficult match, right?" "I think Kiba is correct," Shino said, lifting his glasses. "Don't underestimate your opponent, though. A quick and decisive attack is the key to your victory." Naruto's shoulder was grabbed by Sakura, who had woken up almost the same time Ino did. "Naruto, this is what you possess, if not more. Don't be timid." Naruto nodded and returned Sakura's smile with a hand gesture. "I am aware of the appropriate course of action, Sakura." He shifted his position and went off the railing. The Hidden Cloud community's gaze was fixed on him, with the expectation of achieving what he is known for. The presence of cold, hard eyes caused Gaara to stare at him. Due to his intense training, he was able to perform this task without any difficulties. Hinata's hands were covering her mouth in the meantime. Upon hearing the cheers of her teammates, she headed to the arena. Naruto's gaze caught the war waging in her direction, as if she was ready to fight, but she had a fear of something beyond that. Did she feel scared of him? Naruto and Hinata confronted each other. Genma asked if she was prepared. Naruto's nod was a forceful one, as evidenced by his strong presence. Hinata gave a more cautious nod. Hinata Hyuga and Naruto Uzumaki meet in the final match of the season. Initiate. Naruto jumped by as far to gain some distance. He aimed to see how his clones would respond against a gentle fist practitioner from the Hyuga clan. Naruto was determined not to take any risks after witnessing Neji's ruthless use of it. A clone was sent by him to attack Hinata. After reaching out to her, the clone struck her with his fist, delivering a precise blow that caused her to break down and cry in distress. Naruto's true face trembled as he anticipated more. Hinata's palm was thrust forward as her head snapped backwards. Upon receiving the memories of his clone, Naruto took a deep breath and made an effort to summon 2 additional copies and have them cross the river into Hinata. Hinata would have to approach it from a different direction if he could eliminate his clones with just one tap. After activating her Byakugan, Hinata shifted into the gentle fist position. Upon being approached by Naruto's clones, she avoided the jolt and cautiously poked his stomach, but it veered backwards, only for the second chronal heir to try to kick Hinata on the flank. The clone was successfully moved outward by Hinata's smooth push, but her subsequent attempts were not as decisive and she ultimately failed to connect. It was a complete surprise that the clone's face appeared astounded. The creature's face turned into a grimace. Hinata endeavored to concentrate on the task at hand, and leaped under the clone's roundhouse kick. A quick hit would suffice, but Hinata's determination faltered and she couldn't connect. The clone became angry and hit Hinata on the back of its fist. What was going on with Hinata? The clone growled at him. "Will you win?" Hinata asked, but her voice remained silent. Her choice was to eliminate the clone, as it was too angry to hinder her efforts. Simultaneously, the authentic Naruto was yawning. Hinata had the chance to eliminate his clone twice, but she didn't succeed. He retraced his steps, silently acknowledging something crucial. Despite his nervousness, Hinata was brought here to be promoted. His clones were eradicated from his body. Frankly speaking, despite his belief that the fight would be better, this was an excellent opportunity to advance to the next round. It was necessary for him to accept it. He entered and after coming near her, he swung his body around her palm before finally hitting her chest with the flat of his palm. By forcefully kneeling on her stomach, he caused her to be doubled in size. He shifted to her side and lifted his leg before driving it down, hitting her back with his heel. Hinata was knocked out following 3 assaults. Naruto shook his head in an instant. He must have been expecting too much from both this exam and Hinata. If she belonged to the same family as Niji, he assumed that she had some knowledge of taijutsu. He easily got on her side, avoided hitting her, and beaten. Although it didn't come as a surprise, he was able to win. That was the only thing that mattered to him. Naruto Uzumaki is the winner, as Genma declared. I desire that the remaining match winners come together here as soon as possible. Naruto observed Kurenai's arrival at the arena to care for Hinata. Naruto looked at her and saw Kurenai return his gaze, but she quickly turned away, causing Naruto to feel heartbroken. He was aware of the closeness between Kurenai and Hinata, but he believed that she might give him some time to show her approval. Naruto shook his head in an instant. He was expecting too much. Kurenai's primary focus was on taking care of her official students. Seeing her again could lead to her congratulating him. It took hold of him. A few days ago, she kissed him and ignited his emotions. It was another thing he couldn't grasp. What was the reason behind her actions? To express affection and appreciation? He didn't grasp it. Naruto, like all other characters, chose to ignore it for the time being. Later on, he could come up with a solution. After revealing that the third phase of the Chunin exams would take place in a month, the Hokage instructed Anko to prepare the draw numbers for the fight and Ibiki to use those numbers to determine fixtures. The relationship between Niji Hyuga and others. The conflict between Yujito ni Shikamaru Nara and his counterpart. The match between Rock Lee Sasuke Uchiha and the other fighters is a must-watch. The match between Garashino Aburame and Zuanaki Nakasa. Naruto Uzumaki and Kankura are pitted against each other. Temari Omoi Naruto was present as the Hokage revealed to the Genin that it was possible for someone to turn into a Chunin without winning any of their fights, and that one may still not receive promotion despite winning the tournament. Naruto's mind was consumed by ideas of how he could improve his fighting style after they were dropped. Temari was a practitioner of the wind-style ninjutsu and had the ability to use it with great skill. To have a greater variety in his fighting style, he had to improve his ninjutsu abilities. With over 1,000 ninjutsu belts, Kakashi was the most capable person he could turn to for assistance. The significance of this lay in Kurenai's ability to train Shino. It was worth a shot, at least. Naruto found Kakashi at the hospital, just as he had anticipated. Kakashi responded with, "Naruto, please greet me. How can I help you?" Naruto asked, preparing for the worst. "I'm in need of support and can't solve my problem, seek it out first." "What is it?" Kakashi inquired. "There are more than 1,000 ninjutsu styles to learn, but I'm eager to try something new. I was wondering if you could offer me some tips and tricks to improve my technique." Kakashi contemplated Naruto's words for a moment before questioning the meaning behind their conversation. "Are you afflicted with your chakras?" Naruto nodded. By being able to identify the chakra elements that were present in everyone else's system, he could determine his own self-awareness. "It's wind. It seems that I have a secondary fondness for water." He had studied his chakra extensively, which allowed him to identify other qualities he had. Kakashi sighed. "I could educate you on water techniques, but I can only teach you the fundamentals of wind." The tone of Kakashi's voice left a lasting impression on Naruto. "Is it going to take a long time?" Kakashi asked. "I'm not entirely sure, actually. It's on you to make that happen." Naruto's expression was one of a frown. "Is there anything you're interested in asking me?" Kakashi nodded. "I'm curious as to why you are acting this way. As a student, shouldn't we be learning from your teacher?" With his hands in his pockets, Kakashi made a move. "I realized I wasn't giving you as much knowledge as you wanted, but I had a plan for you and your fellow players. I would start with chakra control and then progress to ninjutsu once my team was prepared." "What's the matter with you?" Naruto inquired, unable to discern where Kakashi was coming from. I'm experiencing a significant improvement in my chakra control since before. Kakashi acknowledged that they have improved, but his voice was not as proud as Naruto had assumed. I'm not sure what you're dealing with, Naruto said, causing him to lose his temper. Why don't you come up with a lesson for me? Due to my busy schedule, I am unable to devote much time to teaching you. Naruto's hand was firmly planted in his fist. Wouldn't it be more fitting to train Sasuke instead of him? Naruto was dissatisfied with Kakashi's response, as it failed to clarify why he was instructing Sasuke instead of the other way around. One of the last Genjutsu masters in the village, she still has red eyes and black hair, Naruto said with a grim demeanor. I had a sneak peek that she might have been involved in training you, Kakashi revealed, much to Naruto's surprise. Throughout this period, he believed that Kakashi was completely unaware of the situation. The only thing missing is the way you engage with others. The distance between you and two strangers is too great. Naruto shook his head in frustration. Instead of focusing on the big picture, Kakashi seemed to have a thorough understanding of what was going on between them. Naruto's head trembled as he admitted that Kakashi was becoming increasingly paranoid. I can understand the reason for your actions. You had to find a method to strengthen yourself and you weren't happy with my teaching approach. Despite everything, I'm glad you found someone to assist you. If you had informed me, I would have granted you my blessing. I gave you some space because your additional training was proving effective. I prayed that you would inform me when you were prepared. Nevertheless, I didn't do it. Naruto's inflated form was unjustified. The decision to keep their relationship a secret was made by Kurenai, who didn't want him to undermine her trust. Kakashi retrieved a water balloon from his pocket and launched it at Naruto, knowing that Kurenai is likely to train Shino. I request that you make an effort to create a balloon that has chakra energy. Can you share your experience with elemental training? Chase a leaf in half by means of the chakra. Concentrate on achieving the illusion of a thin and sharp chakra. After catching the balloon, Naruto nodded and memorized Kakashi's advice. And what? Kakashi's eye widened in disdain. Conversely, visit the hot springs to continue your water-style training. Concentrate on raising a column of water from the pool situated there. If you come across a white-haired man in the crowd, what would be your course of action? Inspire him to lend a hand in your endeavors. It's impossible to predict what might happen in the future. Thank you, Naruto expressed. Very well, Kakashi said. I apologize for my lack of help, but if Sasuke is not prepared to fight someone like Gaara, he will die. I can provide guidance to Sasuke to prevent him from being reliant on the cursed seal. Naruto nodded and acknowledged Kakashi's origin by recognizing his own background. It's a different situation altogether as it stands today. Kakashi-sensei is fine. Kakashi provided him with some instruction at least. Thanks for providing me with a job. Kakashi's expression was one of pure happiness. If you come across a white-haired man with horns guarding his forehead and kanji for oil, make an effort to communicate with him. There's a chance that you might be gifted with something good. Naruto's confusion was palpable, but he still remembered the information. Is it possible to do so? Greetings, I'll be near you. He positioned his foot and exited the hospital. He was let down when Kakashi couldn't do his job again, but he was glad a guy like him had the right guidance. Kakashi informed him that the training was not hands-on, but rather a learning experience. He was tired of being let down by others. The inability to understand why things happened the way they did was exhausting, according to him. Until Naruto had an understanding, he would simply move on and continue with his life's work. He repeated the same action on several occasions in the past. He has the ability to do it again and again. That was just the way he was. Naruto's affection for rain was apparent. After leaving the hospital, he noticed that it had started to rain and heard raindrops hitting buildings with a happy expression. He couldn't help but smile when the light drizzle turned to a downpour just minutes later. It was cloudy and the sun shone, causing the world to turn gray. He adored the way the rain was ridding the streets of dust, cleaning out the roofs of grime, giving the grass a fresh scent, and cooling down the humid summer heat. The Leaf Village's lights were a delight to watch, as they could reflect off the raindrops and brighten the dark sky with the colors of the rainbow. The rain's solitary feeling was what he loved the most about it. The majority of the village stayed indoors during rain, leaving the weather to absorb any rainfall and making it feel like the world was coming to an end. It allowed him to walk without fear, despite the oppressive treatment he was subjected to by the locals. He was able to release all his emotions as the rain fell on him, and then he could start over again when the tears disappeared. The level of politeness is impressive. Naruto's expression was a smile upon hearing the voice of the nine-tailed fox. "What are you looking for?" He could sense the nine-tail's smirk. "Saving against this odious bird. Feel free to feel what I experience whenever you please. I couldn't do it at all after you made the process of molding your chakra simpler." Naruto was aware that his hair and clothes were soaking up the rain and gripping onto his skin, but ignored it as he felt the nine-tail's chakras spike to some extent. He breathed deeply into himself after tuning out the nine tails and continued walking home. He entertained the idea of visiting either Kurenai or Shikamaru, but he was aware that Kurente would have been more concerned with her troops. He opted not to intrude on Shikamaru's parents by offering his congratulations for his successful exam. He experienced a decrease in his frustration and stress from the Chunin exam. His sense of pride was lifted by the realization that he had achieved it and was one step closer to promotion. In summary, he was excited to witness the next phase of Naruto Uzumaki in a month and to showcase his true self. Naruto had savored his walk home and was now walking down the street to his dwelling. His enjoyment of his peaceful travels was short-lived as he saw a woman carrying an umbrella over her head walking along the path. "I'm taken aback by how much it surprised me." Naruto perceived the husky drawl and smiled. He looked around and realized he was in the vicinity of Misane, exclaiming, "Misane, good day." After approaching him, Misane asked, "How's everything?" and then smiled as she retrieved a set of keys from her pocket. "Naruto, I'm doing fine." Naruto's expression was dwindling, and his jaw dropped as he inquired about your well-being. Redistributed the content as a word. Before turning around, Misane opened the door. She placed a finger on Naruto's chin and raised it. Naruto observed that Misane didn't wear any makeup, but she still had the sexiness and charm. "I am capable of easing it by providing you with relief." Naruto squirmed and looked back at the situation, uncertain about Misane's stress-reducing benefits. "No, not a single thing. I'm happy with my current situation." Misane's ribbing was sweet and melodious. "I had intended to ask you to come inside and dry off." She threw her umbrella onto the ground and secured it around her shoulder. Her other hand widened. She led Naruto inside after she took it with her. "You can wear a robe and dry off your clothes," she said as the door was closed. "I won't be looking at you while you change clothes." Her wink caused his stomach to squirt. Naruto let go of Misane's tender hand and shook his head. "No thanks, nothing's the answer. I'll probably go home to dry my clothes there after that." Misane pressed her lips shut. "I am cognizant of this statement." She proceeded to put her blue raincoat on the coat rack and pull out her ponytail, before putting her umbrella in a basket. She rekindled their conversation and took him to a private space with low red lighting, where he can rest on settee next to table. Fortunately, they were in a warm room. After sitting on the couch, Naruto asked if he could inquire. Misane nodded and sat nearby to Naruto's head. "Go ahead and do what you want." She sat cross-legged on the sofa and placed her arm on it. Naruto's shoulders were draped with a white t-shirt, and her long hair was all over them, which caused the viewer to lose interest. What is the significance of a girl blushing in your presence? It's possible that your actions caused her shame. It wasn't anything comparable to that. He rubbed the back of his neck. It was suggested that she might become blushes when you gaze at her. With a smile, Misane bent over to place her arm on the ground. Isn't it clear that the girl has a crush on you? She's so frightened that she can't help but blush. Naruto's expression was one of a frown. She said, "Oh, I see." Misane flashed his eyes. What's the story behind your recent tournament win, where I had to face off against a girl who may have been attracted to me? Naruto's expression was one of grimace. She said, "I punched her pretty badly." Misane's expression was one of scowling. No matter what, I'll still be grateful. If you want that girl to like you, then you'll need to do a lot of work. I don't think it would be worth the trouble. She's not the type of girl I want to be. Naruto neglected to mention that he was much more emotionally connected with Kurenai than Hinata, and there was a chance that his animosity towards him could prevent him from feeling the same way, as if Shurihir would always be in his thoughts. His chances were ruined if he had shown any interest. Misane nodded, and then a smile slowly spread across her face. Naruto inquired, "Do you have any idea if you are interested in the girl with more mature features?" He smeared his mouth. Misane chuckled, "That wasn't the intended message I wanted to convey. Naruto, you're too much of a joker for me to even care about." His insecurities were revealed as Naruto's frown became apparent. He wasn't that accustomed to being laughed at nowadays, unlike in his time as a prankster, and now with no expectation of any kind of reply. Misane stumbled, placing her hand over Naruto's body. He experienced a strange sensation in his chest, which was not related to the strain from Kurenai. Her warm smile alleviated the unease that had beset him. "You can avoid being ridiculed here, Naruto, as it is not a matter of concern. Remember?" Naruto's lips pressed up and down. "It is true that I do." He observed that Misane's toned arms and legs flexed, contracted, and expanded as he looked around. "What is your training routine like?" "I do a lot of stretching and building up my stamina." She demonstrated this by unfolding her legs and placing a leg beside herself, lifting it to the side and making it straight. Naruto was taken aback when Misane returned her leg without any apparent pain. "That's really cool," she said. "Are you not a ninja, are you?" "No, really." She smiled with a kind expression. "I'm a professional in the adult entertainment industry. Engaging in activities such as singing, dancing, and escorting, among other things. I'm curious, what is the reason behind it?" They persisted in talking about less significant matters until Naruto realized that the rain had drenched the ground to a crawl. He raised his arms and stood up. "I have a feeling that I'll be able to go home now." Misane also stood up. "Are you not interested?" Naruto asked, shaking his head. Misane released his hand and held her thumb and index finger over his chin. "I'll admit that it's just a case of being silly. I still have a lot to do before I can get out there and start working." She released him and led him to the entrance of her workplace, glancing at him with a smile. "Are you fine?" was the response to Naruto's nod and smile, followed by a smile. "Very well," he exclaimed as a walker on his way home, after thinking about how Misane had kept her word. She didn't try to make him anxious or jittery, and she was able to ease the stress that had been placed on him. The day after, Naruto went to the hot springs with a restful demeanor. The early afternoon sun was bright and sunny, with just the right amount of cloud cover. Despite being late to bed, he was relieved that no one expected him and had not had a stressful night for almost 7 days. While en route, he came across a restaurant that everyone knows. He recalled the memories of the place and all the good times he had there. He reflected on the last time he visited the restaurant, which caused him to wear a frown. He had hoped to return and apologize, but he didn't because of several reasons, some important and others not. The slurred taste in his stomach was indicative of the thin breakfast he had been having. He went inside to Ichiraku Ramen and sat on the stool, anticipating more than just ramen. "Hi, my name is Bill Monroe." Tucci and Ayam's employment had ceased immediately. "I haven't seen you since Naruto, has it not been a while?" Tucci asked. "Are you doing well?" The old ramen chef looked on with a small smile on his face. "Ayam, create the usual for Naruto." Naruto witnessed Ayam crafting a miso ramen dish with skill. After completing the task, she gave him the bowl. "Today, Naruto, welcome to the world. Have a good time?" After breaking his chopsticks, Naruto began to eat. As always, the ramen was excellent in terms of its taste, aroma, and texture. The bowl was pushed aside by him. "I regret not making it, and I'm sorry to say that I didn't come. It's just that I was feeling a bit pitted when I arrived with Ino as my fellow travelers. I am not using it as a justification for being terrible to you and Tucci, even though they had been looking out for me for years and then turned my back on them like an unappreciative intruder." Upon reaching over, Ayam tugged his hair out and gave him a tender smile. "Naruto, we're not interested in getting angry with you." Naruto's expression was a smile. Naruto nodded and informed Ayam and Tucci, who had already prepared another bowl of ramen, about his unsuccessful date with Ino from the start to the end. Tucci finally admitted his disbelief, saying, "I understand the cause of your anger." Ayam smirked in despair. "Yeah. That really sounded terrible. The date was ruined and everything went awry when you tried to cancel it." Naruto ingested a mouthful of noodles. And it felt a lot more awful than it was. After consuming the bowl, he took out his wallet. Tucci declared that Naruto was not obligated to pay for anything. Tucci chuckled and asked, "What's the reason?" "There is no justification for anything. This time is free of charge for you." Ayam approached the customer and stood beside Naruto. "Naruto, you're right, it's Dad. Our top customer has been treated to a wonderful treat. The statement implies that it's not intended to entice you with more money, is it?" He replied in jest, but there was a small part of him who had some suspicion. Seeing Ayam's frown, he knew it was an error on his part. "I feel bad for you, I'm sorry to say. I truly believed that you and I were your friends." Naruto's gaze widened as he waved his hands in an excruciating manner. "We are, don't be upset." Ayam muttered and comforted Naruto with a big hug, showing his approval. Naruto reverted to the embrace he had been given. "Naruto, I was just teasing you. I am cognizant of the fact that we are friends." "Naruto, we are always happy to have you join us," Tucci declared. Ayam and Naruto were given a warm smile by the man who let go of her grip on him. "Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it." Both of them returned his smile. It was clear to Naruto that he could go back to his beloved village restaurant. It was also a positive aspect. Although he could make ramen and other dishes, his cooking abilities were not as impressive as those of the Ikarakus. Nevertheless, Naruto was content that he resolved the issue with his companions. "It's a fact that I am very pleased." After reaching the hot springs, Naruto proceeded to the adjacent river and commenced one of the chakra exercises taught to him by Kakashi. By focusing on his chakra, he endeavored to make a pillar of water rise from the river. Regrettably, he was unsuccessful in his endeavors. He made multiple attempts, but none were successful. He opted to soak in the hot springs and enjoy his time there. He knew that stress alone would not be effective and had a month to figure out the chakra exercise. The receptionist took his payment without any hesitation, which was unexpected and surprising him. He went to the men's baths and stripped down, tying a towel around his waist once he was fully clothed. While placing his clothes in the basket given by the receptionist and sitting on a nearby stool, Naruto washed with soap and wipes of dirt he had collected over the past few days. He filled a bucket full of water and covered himself with it, wiping off any remaining soap residue. After being cleansed, Naruto walked over to an open-air hot spring and lathered his body in the water, feeling elated as the waters purified. He had a rare moment where he could calm down and was eager to unwind for as long as attainable. His thoughts were consumed by memories of his earlier endeavors to construct a water column. By using Genjutsu and hand seals, he could apply his knowledge to the water's desired shape. Naruto's eardrums were filled with the sound of a loud giggle, but he didn't acknowledge it. He had the opportunity to unwind and nobody was going to take it away from him. The laughter persisted, as did the sound of pen scribbling against paper. Naruto disregarded it once more. He contemplated the idea of transforming water into a pillar using his chakra. However, he was unable to. He opened his eyes to see a big man with long, white hair that was visible all over the wooden fence. He was perplexed by it. Apart from the other buildings and the forest, there was no significant interest in anything beyond that fence. Discuss this fact for yourself and discover how it may have influenced your life choices. It's important to ensure that everything is in place. The Ninetales' vocal style was slightly off, but it made a good point. Wearing only a towel, Naruto made his way to the fence to avoid the white-haired man and searched for something to do. He was about to abandon his pursuit after moments of searching, but he eventually came across an opening in the fence. His pulse raced as he anticipated solving this riddle and returning to his leisurely jet set. Looking through the crack, he saw something. I have no plans of doing anything. The mist obstructed his view of the man's captivating story. The thought occurred to him all of a sudden while reminiscing about his sensor ability. The mist washed away by a burst of sunlight before he could use it. The sunlight illuminated a multitude of well-endowed women, many of whom were naked and unaware of being noticed in the hot spring, while others played in water that adhered to their skin and glowed in daylight. Naruto experienced a rush of blood and was aroused, as he observed their hips swaying, breasts being huntamed, and buttocks shaking in enticing ways. There was a certain part of him that wanted to keep an eye on the women, but he still remembered the last time slight from spying on them. The combination of the two factors, along with the belief that he was a pervert, caused him to turn around and walk away from the wall. Were you aware that this was going to happen? Naruto inquired after hearing the Ninetales' savage roar. The Ninetales didn't say anything, but their laughter grew louder. Naruto resisted an outburst of fury, refusing to look away from the man with white hair. He persisted in making that irritating noise and shamelessly espionage on those women. He had an idea. He slithered behind the man, contorted his fingers and pointed with his index in an upright position. He stooped to make contact with the man's buttocks. Smoke engulfed both of them. Naruto was smashed by a massive toad after it was cleared. After catching the pen that was falling down, the man continued to write in his notepad. Naruto was shocked as he looked at him, his mouth open and his eyes straining. The man stood in front of Naruto as he closed his notepad and leapt off his toad. Sorry, I thought you were an annoyance. I was going to have lunch with you later and would be doing some research on the subject. Naruto's identification of the man was prompted by red lines running down his face and the deep dots in his eyes. Is it a fluke? Very well. He patted the toad's nose and it disappeared exactly as it did when touched. Naruto wailing in agony. Despite not breaking any bones, the toad sitting on him was far from relaxing. I never realized that Jiraiya of the legendary Sannin was a pervert. Jiraiya's expression was grimacing. I'm not a pervert myself. As Naruto was about to answer, Jiraiya interrupted him by saying, I'm a total pervert. You're aware of me, boy, do my books have a following? Naruto asked, gesturing before returning to his drawing. Jiraiya stumbled upon an orange book in his hand and proceeded to push it towards Naruto's face. What books have you come across? It's the reason I'm here today. The women of the Leaf Village are among the most exceptional in the elemental nations and I need inspiration for my next piece. Naruto scowled. Jiraiya's expression was piercing as he looked on. The sight of Orochimaru reminded him of his encounter with him. He felt like he had been judged and found wanting. It's best to avoid giving me directives on what I should and shouldn't do, particularly after a genjutsu. Jiraiya used a single finger to strike his chest. The real Naruto separated from Jiraiya's kinetic energy and the camouflage illusion that was activated when he released his toad. Jiraiya's disapproving gaze was met with silence from Naruto, who turned around and gave a grim look to himself. In the end, Jiraiya's face lit up with joy as he smiled. "You're not my usual type, right? I shouldn't have underestimated the difficulty of Blade of Illusion in Leaf Village." Naruto replied in a comparable manner to, "It's the same for you." Naruto's disdain for perverted activities persisted, as he learned from his youth how the village dealt with such behavior. He had a different perspective on perverts after encountering individuals like Kakashi or Masane, who were both completely unapologetic. "I was completely unaware that you wrote that lame pornography." Jiraiya's laughter made Naruto feel as though he had accidentally done something. "It's not a pornographic movie, but rather an erotica production." "There's a contrast." Naruto's arms were extended as he laid them down. "What's it?" Jiraiya asked. Ika is more than just pages of ejaculate. The story is a mix of disappointment and deception, triumph and prosperity as the protagonist and heroine approach each other's fate. The sex should take place at the appropriate time. Naruto's inability to respond appropriately was due to his habit of looking at him. "Let's just say this," Jiraiya suggested. Naruto expressed that erotica typically starts small and builds up its tension, but it can still be enjoyable when it's short-lived. No. I appreciate you telling me. It's likely that you won't be able to conduct any further research." Jiraiya disposed of his copy of Ika Ichano Paradise. "Say no more, it's not worth worrying about." Naruto nodded and departed to make his way home, changing clothes. "In order to learn ninjutsu, Kakashi-sensei instructed me to meet a pervert for the purpose of training." Jiraiya had unexpectedly walked in alongside him, without any prior notice. Naruto scrutinized his chakra and observed the extent of chakra suppression. Naruto scoffed and queried why a ninjutsu instructor was needed. "I am struggling to adapt my fighting style." The bingo book entry contains an unexpected element that will be awe-inspiring to those who read it. Naruto was given the opportunity to change clothes as Jiraiya nodded and leaned towards the wall, giving him time. Naruto asked why you are seeking a teacher when your sensei is Kakashi Hatake. "He's occupied with some work. He hasn't been as effective in teaching me as he could be. Although he taught me to work together and use my genjutsu as a partner, it didn't have any impact on my martial arts performance. There are moments when I feel like I am teaching someone else." Jiraiya smacked through his hand shields and let out a smoke-filled explosion. He was quickly attired in a forehead protector that featured kanji, an olive-green kimono shirt and pants, red haori, and wooden sandals. "Why is it not acceptable to be your own teacher?" Naruto asked, gesturing with a tearful look at Jiraiya's speed in dressing. "The students were supposed to be taught by the Genin sensei, as I believed they should learn about chakra control or other techniques." "Are you correct?" Jiraiya replied as they departed. The Genin sensei is responsible for teaching their students about the fundamentals of the nimble world, including missions, teamwork, and so on. The person can direct their student towards the direction they believe is most suitable for them. "I was a good student, but I'm now working on something that is not popular among many. I found a competent instructor for Genjutsu." Jiraiya exhibited a raised eyebrow. "I'll give you an idea of what it is." Naruto chuckled, "Your Kurenai, the Crimson Mirage. Right? Because more from that song than anything else." "You've got it in your hands," she said. Jiraiya's unsettling gaze caught his attention once more. Sannin's constant glare doesn't sit well with me. Are you Sannin? The Chunin exams saw me and my team compete against Orochimaru a few days ago. He tried to seal the Nine Tails chakra, but I duped him with a clone before he could access me. Jiraiya's blinking was swift. You're being funny, don't be embarrassed to admit it. Naruto's head trembled as he began to laugh in delight. It is an invaluable contribution. Naruto's expression was one of pure happiness, and he couldn't fathom the sight of him smiling. He noticed that they were at the entrance to the hot springs area. I believe I've had enough downtime for the day. It's time to get some training. Stay still, Naruto. Naruto's movements were interrupted as he turned around. Why haven't I offered my assistance to you in preparing for ninjutsu? Naruto frowned. Kakashi had advised him to find Jiraiya, but he was surprised by his decision not to offer to train him. What's the reason behind it? How can I explain this? I believe you can share my legacy with you. Naruto's expression was one of a frown. I'm the Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox, Jiraiya said with a smirk. While the trump card is impressive, it's not the entire reason I'm interested in teaching you. There's something about you that I find myself drawn to, and I want to explore your true nature. For a brief moment, Naruto looked at Jiraiya with his gaze. He proceeded to extend his hand. In the event that Sannin offered to train me, I would be foolish for refusing. Jiraiya replied softly and returned his smile after shaking Naruto's hand. He gazed at the sky. Moving tomorrow, Kurenai will be escorted to the village gates. I have a few things to attend to, so I'll proceed with my next assignment, Naruto replied as he left his new teacher. Despite his eagerness to learn from Jiraiya the art of teaching him ninjutsu, Naruto was currently preoccupied with the kiss Kurenai gave him. He had attempted to disregard those thoughts while concentrating on the Chunin exams, but they suddenly returned after he was released. The sight of Kurenai's delicate, luscious lips playing on his cheek left him feeling disoriented and startled as he made his way home. At times, he found it hard to accept the presence of such an attractive, beautiful, intelligent, thoughtful, and supportive woman as a friend and teacher. He shook with fear when he thought about life without her guidance and insight, which would help him become a better ninja and person. She provided him with unexpected benefits and made him the happiest member of the village. Seeing her the day before the exams, he was taken aback to see that the strong man in his life had been so deeply affected by tragedy. Kurenai's initial dismissal caused him to feel almost too scared, and it took a lot for him not to do something that he would later regret. Luckily, she gave him a chance and he took it, soothing her in the same way she provided comfort. What could have been a nightmarish event turned into one of the most happy moments in his young life. He had a dream where Kurenai would snuggle up against him and use her body to hug him, which was the most delightful part. Despite acknowledging that it was all good and necessary, he had a certain feeling that the dream wasn't genuine. He arrived at his apartment without any disturbances and was greeted by a rosy blush. He probably wouldn't have recognized it if there were such things, but his thoughts were focused on Kurenai and her captivating red eyes, long hair, and curvy curves. Suggests that someone has a romantic interest in you. Naruto's blush didn't fade, but the Nine Tails made another good point. Did he really have feelings for his teacher? It's not fair that you were more considerate of her than anyone else. Despite the pitiful thoughts you have about me, they're so painful that they make me feel like I need to be tied up to escape. He was taken aback by the Nine-Tailed Fox's support. Although he knew that Kurenai would never consider him more than a friend or student, it did give him hope. Upon reaching his floor, he observed someone lurking in the shadows. The person who had been on his mind was suddenly seen by him in a brief moment. Kurenai inquired, "Didn't you know that it's disrespectful to hold a woman in wait?" while she entered the light. Naruto's body was calming as he said, "I didn't know you were seeking me. I was under the impression that you would be taking care of Shino." He expressed his pleasure in seeing Kurenai, but the slight frown on her handsome face didn't inspire confidence in him. Shino informed me that he would be participating in the training with his father. He expressed his anticipation of facing you. Naruto's blinking was initially insignificant, but he eventually came to the realization that it was his gaze. Hinata was the cause of this incident, didn't he? It caused him to look annoyed. Yes, but he didn't say it. The deep frown on Kurenai intensified. Kiba's condition was worse, but he was still in good physical shape during the exams and had no issues with his opponent. The question remains, why are they upset? Hinata was the one who waited for her to be answered. Kurenai gave a sigh of relief. I acknowledge that. Although Hinata is a lovely girl, there are concerns about her behavior. It was a struggle to watch the fight you and I had. I was aware that you would have faced one of my teammates, but Hinata was the only opponent I didn't want to see. Is it possible that she had a crush on me? She nodded in reply. Yes, of course. I was confident that she wouldn't hurt you. Were you aware of them beforehand? I only became aware after the fight concluded. Naruto applied pressure to his hair by stroking it. Whether she liked me or not, I couldn't bear to lose her. Kurenai snatched the tip of her nose. I can't help but wonder if I should have apologized for not knowing what you were up to at the time. You emerged victorious in a swift and unblemished manner. The act of smiling for the first time was a moment that made Naruto's heart race. I want to extend my utmost congratulations. Naruto's expression was one of pure happiness, and he also smiled. Kurenai-sensei, I'm grateful for your help. Thank you. He took a break. Where did you find me? Kurenai asked, his head shaking. Did you hear me ask? Naruto nodded, as Lord Hokage told all the Chunin-sensei about their potential students. Her face lit up with a smile. The answer is, so what, exactly? Due to Shino's busy training schedule, it appears that I won't be working for the next month. Naruto experienced a massive lump in his throat. No. Since I had the impression that you would be training Shino, I have already found a tutor to assist me. Who is this Sannin? Her words were incomprehensible to me. Kakashi inquired if I could locate Jiraiya, as he was preoccupied. I came across him at the hot springs. He suggested training me for the next month after a brief conversation with me. Resignation was expressed by Kurenai as he sighed. I had a feeling it would be like that. She extended a hand. Don't worry, there's no need to fret. Will you abandon the practice of Genjutsu if you're going to train with an esteemed Sannin? See description. Naruto shook his head hard. No, I have no intention of stopping there, but rather to become a master of Genjutsu. My opponents will expect me to use a trump card, and I'll train with you instead of Jiraiya because I don't want to risk my opponent losing. Holding her hand in front of her mouth, Kurenai burst out laughing. Alright, so be it. You've convinced me. Naruto's expression was accompanied by a renewed smile. Jiraiya expressed his desire to meet you at the village gates tomorrow. Is it possible for you to make it? She looked towards the doorway of Naruto's apartment. Wouldn't it be nice if you could drop me an email? Kurenai-sensei, are you interested in visiting my apartment? I would be happy to have that opportunity, Naruto. The couch was where Naruto and Kurenai were sitting. Despite being less comfortable than Masane's or Kurenai, the couch was not rigid. It was habitable and, just like the rest of his house, had no immediate repairs. Kurenai expressed his satisfaction with Naruto's tea, stating that it was quite good. Naruto's cheeks popped as he smiled and his face reddened. Thanks. They muttered calmly while Kurenai continued to drink her tea. To avoid being swept away by her gaze, Naruto began to glance around. He found it challenging to concentrate on a single task that was not related to his training or had no specific objective. After a few minutes, Kurenai decided to place the tea cup on the table next to himself. Naruto, shrugged and greeted Kurenai with a smile. I'm not concerned about it. What's the reason behind your question? I heard you and your fellow players had a chance to meet with Orochimaru. Can you provide me with an explanation, please? The opening lines of Naruto detailed Sasuke and Sakura's battle with Orochimaru, his strategy to repel him after he was unconscious, how the latter utilized its chakra, where a heavy blow was inflicted on Orochimaru before being vanquished, and his confrontation with the nine-tailed fox. He had observed Kurenai's proximity to him until he saw her hands on his shoulders. I'm relieved you're in a secure environment. She smiled at him brightly. I never expected such a dramatic performance from you, but I thought it was far beyond what I had anticipated. I'm filled with pride for you. Naruto's flushing motion was accompanied by an exhale. Thanks to all of you. He observed the proximity of their faces and was surprised by the aroma of Kurenai's scent in his nostrils. Naruto looked into Kurenai's eyes and observed her hair, soft skin, beautiful eyes, small nose that grew and contracted as she breathed, and sweet red lips. The lips had infiltrated his thoughts and dreams. He felt a pull on him after being so close, remembering the warmth she gave him from her lips touching his cheek. His heart was racing and he observed Kurenai's tender lips open slightly. He was already moving forward when he realized it and kissed her with his own hand in a floppy but passionate manner. Naruto observed Kurenai's eyes widening slightly, which could have been a surprise, as his eyes closed and he focused on the sensation of her lips pressing against him. He was filled with a sense of delight and the tenderness of her lips and sweet breath. Naruto eventually relinquished the kiss and opened his eyes, with a burning face. Naruto's inability to understand emotion caused Kurenai to widen her eyes. The silence engulfed them like the harsh darkness of dawn, crushing and strangling. Naruto was left with a deep regret for the kiss, which made him feel so loved. Weaned you on that? Kurenai's voice was cold and distant, causing Naruto's involuntary stomach to burst with worry. He didn't want to be Kurenai's friend because he had an uncontrollable urge. He had no intention of ending his relationship with the woman he loved deeply. However, he was aware that it was necessary to be truthful. I was correct. Kurenai touched her lips with her hand and kissed them. They were once again smothered by the unsettling silence, but it didn't last long as Kurenai placed her hand on Naruto's waist. Naruto, do you like me? Kurenai asked. Naruto's attempt to look away was unsuccessful as Kurenai held her fingers on his waist. He was compelled to ask the question. It is true that I do. Kurenai licked her lips and kissed them. Aloft. She bit her lip. I acknowledged the statement. Despite her words, his waist was still holding her hand. What was she hoping for from him if she wasn't going to turn down his affections? Naruto's story began at the start. The answer is, so what, exactly? Kurenai answered. Where does this leave us? She looked back at his face. The answer to that question is determined by your preferences, Naruto. Friendship and a romantic relationship, he inquired, to the point where it seemed like an unintelligible question. Fear and anticipation of the future had only intensified his already fast pulse. You're demonstrating excessive speed, but can you at least tell me what you want? Naruto asked. Yes, of course. Naruto observed Kurenai's silent speech and felt his smile begin to fade. Although he knew that it was unlikely for him to have feelings for Kurenai, the knowledge she had let him kiss her gave him hope in anticipation of something more. As the years went by and Kurenai's eyes became devoid of color, Naruto appeared to be fading like a flower. If you're not interested, Naruto said, it's fine with me, the book says. I am cognizant of this statement. Your age is more significant than mine, and my presence is unpopular among the people in the village. Naruto is a brand that I am considering. He screamed to a stop as soon as he heard her name being spoken. Kurenai? She inquired. I didn't respond with an aversion, she disclosed. She said, you are such a sweet and kind person. I'm confident that you'll be very affectionate towards the person you end up marrying. I think that's what sounds is trying to convey. Is that what you're trying to figure out? The twitching of her mouth's corners was audible. I'm ready to try this, let's do this with our resources. Naruto gestured and extended his hand to kiss her sappy, glowing lips once more, but she put her finger on his mouth. Naruto, be attentive. Your love for me is a great compliment. Feeling? He tasted the word, trying to make sense of where Kurenai was headed. That's the truth. Currently, I am going in a slow and steady way. Are you able to comprehend what I'm saying? He admitted that his first kiss was unremarkable, but it was so thrilling that he wanted more. The possibility of waiting before kissing Kurenai again could mean that she would eventually become his girlfriend. Naruto stated that he comprehends, saying, I know. Kurenai's face lit up with a smile. As a result, that's the situation. I have a feeling that you are my new boyfriend. Naruto's happiness reached new heights during that time. He wrapped his hands around Kurenai's back and hugged her warm body tightly. Naruto felt as though his fears had vanished like a cloud of mist in the middle of the day. Naruto was set to stand up after they parted, but Kurenai held his hand in her own and tied their fingers together. His face exhibited a frown. Even though I don't have any spare rooms, I still want to be here for tomorrow's training, which is late. Kurenai solely smiled at him. I'm not going to lie, I can see the point. She got up and allowed Naruto to lead her to his apartment. After he opened the door, she slowly released his hand. More tomorrow, I'll be back with you. After giving him a kiss on his cheek, she disappeared into the depths of leaves and grass. Naruto stood in that spot, observing the area where Kurenai, his girlfriend, had been situated. Despite the shock of his teacher and best friend's growing closeness, he was certain of one thing. Kurenai wished for him to be like his own wish for her. The knowledge made him the happiest person in the village. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Support the original author by clicking their profile link in the pinned comment of the first video of this series. They deserve the love. Want early access and exclusive content? Join my Patreon community, link below. Your support fuels these videos. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay entertained, stay safe.